Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Stock Market Today. You have Alyssa Corum here, and I am joined by Justin Nielsen. On today's show, we're going to break down the action for the major indexes. Growth stocks got a little bit of relief today, Justin. We're going to take a look at some interesting names on our radar. Why don't you go ahead and give us a preview?
Yeah, so we'll go ahead and talk. Actually, this will be a revisiting of RH that you and Ed talked about yesterday. We'll also mention Taiwan Semiconductor and Pinterest. But first of all, I do want to say a big thank you to veterans, since it is Veterans Day, and the families as well, since families also play a big part in supporting those veterans. So happy Veterans Day.
Thank you, Justin. Yes, happy Veterans Day out there to all you folks. Let's kick it off with a look at the NASDAQ, which closed up 2% for the day. We had the S&P 500 up 0.8%, and the Dow finished roughly flat, down about 0.1% for today. So again, Justin, some nice and welcomed relief from some pretty nasty selling at the beginning of the week.
And, this kind of was the big question is, when you see a big reversal or rotation, really, like we saw on Monday, the question is this temporary or is this something that's going to stick? So right now, we don't have an answer to that question. We saw a number of these rotation tries earlier this year, a number of times. And again, each time they never really stuck, where you had the real economy stocks kind of try and, push themselves back up, the airlines, what have you. So what we definitely saw today was that tech came back in a big way, semiconductors, software, basically that's what caused the NASDAQ to be leading. I mean, Apple was looking great. Another one that was mentioned yesterday. So you had a whole host of tech names that were just reasserting themselves. And now the question is, can they continue to follow up on these gains and hold? So at this point, we never had the uptrend go under pressure or in a correction. So we didn't have to look for a follow-through day. This was just really kind of a 2-day pullback, and we held in all of the areas that we wanted to hold. We held at the 21-day moving average line yesterday, closed above that on the NASDAQ, and stayed above it. So right now, this is just looking like the earlier part of the week was just a normal pullback, as painful as it was. But now it's kind of reestablishing ourselves and maybe buying back some of the positions we lost. But you want to be careful, not go too fast, because again, it is a little vulnerable right now.
That's right. Okay, well, let's kick things off with a revisiting of RH. As Justin mentioned, Ed and I talked about this on yesterday's show, saying how it was setting up, a couple of different buy points at play. And today we did see a very strong move from the stock, up almost 8% for the day, Justin, and some nice volume to go with it. So what are your thoughts?
Well, I think the biggest thing that people have to take away from this is how important it is to do your homework. So if you were watching the show yesterday, if you were looking at RH because you were reading the stock of the day, then this was on your radar. And as it went through those areas, then you kind of had a leg up. Now, I was looking at that area right around 395. We actually put this on Swing Trader as it was kind of going through that area. It went through there really fast. So we were like in the 400 range, but this got up above the 404.77 area. So add 10 cents to that. It's right through that. It didn't get above the 410.49, but a lot of times we're looking for those earlier points of resistance. Once you can get past those, it's okay. And you don't have to do an all or nothing bet here. You can always start a position, maybe at 395, maybe add a little bit once it goes up to that 404, and then maybe finish your position as it gets up to that 410. So there's a lot of ways that you can slice and dice these stocks.
Yeah, that's right. And again, a really good point about doing your research ahead of time, looking for those setups, and being ready to act when you do see a strong stock crossing one of those buy points. And moving on, let's check back in on Taiwan Semiconductor, TSM, up almost 4% for the day. This one, like the overall market, pulled back, but got some support at its 21-day line, and now bouncing today back above that 90 level.
And with a lot of stocks that were kind of testing their 50-day moving average lines, some of the stocks that attracted me the most today were those that were able to hold above their 21 days, like the NASDAQ composite did. So Taiwan Semiconductor was one of those. If you look at the VanEck Vectors Semiconductor ETF, SMH, it looks very similar. Of course, Taiwan Semiconductor is a very big component on this,
Right.
but you can see that this hardly pulled back much at all to any of the moving averages. And so there is definitely strength in that semiconductor industry. A lot of names there that were looking good today. And so Taiwan Semiconductor, again, is one of the stronger ones. But that's kind of what you want to look for. If you do get shaken out of stocks, look for the ones that held up the best, and either reestablish your positions in those or maybe start new ones to kind of increase your exposure.
So you would say that it definitely actionable with this bounce off of the 21-day here.
Yeah, it's not your typical. It's not your typical.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be honest, I would have put this on Swing Trader, but we already had it on Swing Trader. This is one that we held into. We only have a
Yeah.
third position left because we were buying in, we were selling into
Yeah.
the strength. But this is kind of a small consolidation. You got that support at the 50-day moving average line. You had almost like a 50% retracement. This is something that you just see a lot of times where if you just took that low that you pointed out at the 50-day and the top, it basically kind of retraced about 50% of that, and now it's moving back up. So you could also look at this as a pattern with a little mini handle, a little two-day handle. Again, that's not the way that Bill O'Neill was doing his analysis. He was using weekly charts generally, and they had to be of a certain time. But if you're doing more short-term trading, then this is something that would definitely pique your interest. And again, it was a nice follow up to that reversal that it had off of the 21-day, and that's what looked attractive to me as well.
That's right. And speaking of reversals, Pinterest saw a very nice reversal coming down to its 21-day, closed well off of the lows for the day, and a strong gain to follow that up in today's session, up over 7%, Justin. I mean, this stock has had quite a big run this year and some big moves right around its earnings reports from the last couple of quarters.
Right. And we were talking about this on IBD Live because, there are those earnings gaps that you will see, and sometimes it's how do they act afterwards. Now this filled in the gap, but look at how strong the support was. The fact that it was able to close so high in the range yesterday and follow up on it today. I mean, that's definitely some very good strength right there. And if you looked at the 5-minute chart, something, again, the classic way to do this is look at weekly charts. You're looking at 7-week, 8-week bases at the minimum. But sometimes if you look at these charts intraday, you will see some of these patterns. You can kind of see, oh, look, there's a little cup with handle there. And so that was an area that you might consider putting on a little bit of a position on Pinterest. Again, if you just wanted to get a little bit, but this also did kind of hold higher risk. If you go back to the daily, you could see that, if you were putting a line in the sand somewhere, you could be looking at a higher risk for this as a short-term trade. And so just know that rather than passing up on the trade, another option that you have is you can just go with a smaller position. And that's what we did on Swing Trader today. We added this, but we added it as a half position because the risk was a little bit larger than what we typically like to see. So rather than skip it altogether, we just did a half position. So that's an option that you have as well.
Well, some great trading tips there today, Justin. Wow, that was a surprising tongue twister, but we really appreciate it. And thank you all for watching. If you want more insights like this, but much more in depth, make sure you're checking out IBD Live, our daily morning live stream, where our experts are sharing their screens, talking about setups, trade ideas, portfolio management strategies, and market conditions. You can check that out over at investors.com/IBD Live. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow.